There was a time when staying home on a Friday night felt like missing out. Many older men remember those years vividly, the constant rush, the endless obligations, the immense suffocating pressure to always be somewhere, doing something, proving something to the world. But after 60, something quietly, profoundly changes. The place that once felt ordinary suddenly becomes a sanctuary. Home is no longer just where they sleep. It becomes the one place on earth where they can truly breathe, where absolutely no one expects anything from them, where the relentless noise of the world finally fades away. To many people in modern society, this does not make sense. They ask, why would anyone consciously choose to stay home? But for countless older men, the answer is surprisingly simple, because after a lifetime of carrying heavy responsibilities, they finally discover that peace is worth infinitely more than excitement. Today we will explore the psychology of the sovereign man. We will dissect why so many older men genuinely deeply love being home alone, and why this voluntary isolation has very little to do with loneliness and everything to do with liberation. Let us uncover the truth. Section 1. Home finally feels like freedom. For decades, a man's home was rarely a place of complete, unadulterated rest. During his primary earning and providing years, the house was a center of operations. There were bills to pay, repairs to make, children to raise, complex schedules to manage. Responsibilities were waiting around every single corner. Even after a grueling 12-hour day at work, walking through the front door simply meant clocking in for a second shift. There was always something else demanding his immediate attention. But retirement, and the emptying of the nest, completely changes the psychological meaning of home. The exact same walls that once witnessed decades of stress and chaotic energy now become a place of absolute calm. Many older men wake up without the harsh, demanding ring of alarms. They drink their morning coffee slowly. They watch the sunrise. They read a book. They listen to the birds outside their window instead of the roar of morning traffic. For the first time in perhaps 40 years, the home belongs entirely to them. Not to their obligations, not to their family's needs, and not to the bank. The transition from a space of duty to a space of sovereignty is profound. And that simple, quiet shift feels like ultimate freedom. But freedom isn't the only reason home becomes so special. Something even deeper begins to happen within the male mind. Section 2. Silence stops feeling empty. Many people in modern society possess a deep, subconscious fear of silence. The moment they are alone, they immediately turn on the television. They scroll endlessly through their phones, or they actively look for constant, mindless distraction. To the unexamined mind, silence feels like a terrifying void. But older men often experience silence completely differently. We must look at the biological reality of aging. After years of crowded corporate meetings, busy, chaotic households, impending deadlines, and endless, exhausting conversations, a man's nervous system reaches a state of sensory fatigue. For the senior man, silence becomes a rare, exquisite luxury. It acts as a psychological tranquilizer. It gives him the necessary space to think, to reflect on his long journey, to finally slow down his internal engine, to simply exist without the constant interruption of someone else's voice. He discovers a profound philosophical truth. Silence isn't the absence of life. It is the glorious absence of unnecessary noise. When you sit in a quiet house, you can finally hear your own soul speaking. And once an older man experiences that kind of pristine, healing quiet, he begins protecting it fiercely. He refuses to let anyone bring loud, chaotic energy into his sanctuary. And as the noise fades, they notice another, unexpected, incredibly liberating change. Section 3. They stop living on other people's schedules. For the vast majority of adulthood, someone else always needed something. A boss demanded his presence at 8 in the morning. A spouse required his help on the weekends. Children needed to be driven to school. Family members expected his attendance at holidays. Friends demanded his attention. Every single day of his adult life followed someone else's timetable. He was a prisoner to the schedule, but staying home alone completely destroys that paradigm. Now, the senior man answers to the oldest, most natural rhythm in existence, his own biology. He eats when he is actually hungry, not when a lunch break dictates it. He sleeps when his body is tired, not when the late-night chores are finally done. He reads when he feels curious. He takes long, wandering walks when the weather is beautiful. His day is no longer controlled by constant external demands. That absolute independence creates a deep, unshakable sense of satisfaction. He does not stay home because he dislikes people. He stays home because, for the first time in his life, he finally controls his own time. And that is when many older men begin discovering a kind of happiness they never expected. But perhaps the greatest surprise has nothing to do with physical comfort. It has everything to do with resurrecting the soul. Section 4. They finally rediscover who they are. For many men, the middle decades of life move so incredibly fast that they barely had the time to stop, look in the mirror, and ask themselves one remarkably simple question. What do I actually enjoy doing? For 40 years, their entire identity was inextricably connected to their responsibilities. They were a career title, they were a husband, they were a father, they were a machine designed for paying bills and helping everyone else survive. Then one day, the house becomes quiet. At first, that silence feels unfamiliar, even daunting, but gradually, as the weeks turn into months, something remarkable happens. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung called this the final stage of individuation. They begin remembering the man they were before life became so incredibly busy. They pick up an old guitar. They spend an entire afternoon woodworking. They start gardening. They read books they never had the time to open. Some begin painting on canvas. Others learn photography. And some simply sit on the porch, watching the sunset, without feeling a single ounce of guilt for doing nothing. For the first time in years, their life is not built around obligations. It is built entirely around curiosity. They step out of the role of the provider and step back into the role of the explorer. And many older men discover a beautiful truth. They genuinely deeply enjoy their own company. That quiet confidence leads to another unexpected philosophical realization about the modern world. Section 5. They stop chasing constant excitement. Modern culture often dictates a very toxic narrative. It tells us that happiness is synonymous with constant activity. Travel more, go out more, meet more people, stay busy, always be entertained. We are taught that if we are sitting still, we are failing at life. But older men, fortified by the wisdom of experience, begin fiercely questioning that idea. They have already experienced the excitement. They have attended the loud parties. They worked the exhausting overtime. They chased the shiny promotions. They filled their calendars to the absolute brim. Eventually, sitting in the quiet of their homes, they ask a profound retrospective question. Was I actually happier back then? Or was I simply busier? The answer often surprises them. They realize that the hedonic treadmill of chasing thrills never brought them lasting joy. They discover that absolute peace creates a much deeper, more sustainable kind of happiness than constant stimulation ever could. A quiet breakfast, a favorite chair, a brilliant book, rain falling outside the window, a phone that isn't ringing every 5 minutes demanding their attention. These simple, ordinary moments become utterly priceless, not because the senior man's life has become smaller, but because he has finally developed the psychological depth to appreciate it. And with that profound appreciation comes a completely different, almost sacred relationship with time itself. Section 6. Home gives them absolute control over their time. After the age of 60, time feels fundamentally different. The mathematical reality of existence comes into sharp focus. Every year passes a little faster. Every season becomes more meaningful. Older men begin protecting their time almost as carefully and as ruthlessly as they protect their physical health. Home provides them with something they rarely had access to during their younger, career-driven years: choice. They decide exactly how to spend the afternoon. Nobody dictates the schedule. Nobody interrupts their flow state. Nobody forces them to fill every free hour with draining social obligations. Society might label this behavior as laziness or being antisocial, but it is not laziness. It is intentional living. They have learned the hardest lesson of adulthood. Saying yes to everything the world asks of you often means saying no to yourself. Now, they choose differently. They spend their time only where it truly, deeply matters, and the home becomes the sacred fortress where those choices are easiest to make. But perhaps the greatest, most profound gift of staying home alone is something that money can never, ever buy. Section 7. Home becomes a place of profound healing. Life leaves deep, permanent marks on every single man. Disappointments, devastating loss, chronic stress, regret, the crushing weight of responsibility. Even the strongest, most stoic men carry an immense amount of invisible weight on their shoulders. Many older men discovered that their home becomes the hospital for their soul. It is the place where they slowly, methodically heal from the battles of the past decades. And this healing does not happen through dramatic, cinematic moments. It happens through the quiet accumulation of ordinary, peaceful days, a peaceful morning, a familiar, unbroken routine, a favorite hot meal prepared with care, a comfortable chair, the gentle sound of birds singing just outside the window. These simple daily rituals calm the nervous system and repair the mind in ways that many people vastly underestimate. Healing doesn't always happen in extraordinary places or on expensive vacations. Sometimes the deepest healing happens quietly, at home. And eventually, this healing leads them to a realization that completely changes how they see their solitary existence. Section 8. And the ultimate truth. Being home alone does not mean being lonely. This is perhaps the biggest, most tragic misunderstanding of all. People often assume that if an older man actively enjoys staying home, avoiding the dating market and crowded events, he must be suffering from intense loneliness. But solitude and loneliness are not the same entity. Loneliness is the agonizing feeling of being disconnected from the world, even when you are surrounded by people. Solitude is the confident, deliberate choice of quiet, because it brings you peace. Many older men still deeply enjoy spending time with their family. They love seeing their grandchildren. They value meeting close, loyal friends for a coffee. They help their neighbors. But they also intensely value returning home to their fortress to recharge. They no longer fear the silence of an empty house. They no longer fear their own company. In fact, they have become one of their own absolute favorite companions. And to look in the mirror and finally be at peace with the man staring back at you, that is one of the greatest, most beautiful gifts that a lifetime of experience can offer. If you are a man who has discovered the profound joy of staying home, know that you are not broken. You have simply awakened to the ultimate peace. I want to hear from you. Head down to the comments and tell me, what is your absolute favorite part about being home alone? And when did you realize that peace was more valuable than constant excitement? Your wisdom will help guide the younger men who are still exhausted by the noise of the world. If you found value in this deep dive into male psychology, please hit the like button, subscribe to the Sage Academy channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Thank you for watching. Until next time, guard your sanctuary and enjoy your peace.